as you've seen before, we can use components so we can reuse an existing piece of material as we're going. So here I've got a couple pieces, and let's say I have this section here, but I also want to have a section that's a different length. So I'm going to go ahead and just create a new piece from there. So I'm going to do a new component, and maybe I'll make it a shorter piece there. And then I want this piece down here to be the same, so new component. And I'm just going to tell it to go 2. I'll hit the end of this one, so that way I get them the exact same length, and make sure I leave it on new component. So now I've got kind of this one here and this one here. This 4 and 5. And I'm going to say that short top. Short bottom. And I'm going to have these pickets kind of spaced out in there. But right now these are all kind of all over the place. And I want to group them together so I can have multiple sections of these, as well as maybe a divider piece that I'll put in also. Let me just throw a box in here. I don't have a separate piece there for it. So what I want to do is I want to make some groups to group these together. So I'm going to go to a new component, and I'm going to, by default it'll activate it, and I don't like that. I just leave that off. I'm going to make this long here, and then I'll make a new one, another one called short. So I've got these, and so I want to kind of put those together. So I'm going to take this bottom, this top, and this picket, and drag that down into the long. And you can see the symbol changed here, so now it's no longer just a single square, it's a combination of squares, showing that it's more than one component stuck together. And I can expand that and see that I have those all there. I'm also going to grab these short components, drag them down here, and I want a copy of this one in there. So a few different ways I can do that. One is I can just right click, copy, and right click on top of this component here and paste it. And then you'll see that it's the same exact name with a number 2 instead of a number 1. So it's the same piece. If I grab this piece and I move it, I just tell it to capture. You can see if I try and do something to this one, it'll affect both of them because they're exactly the same. If when I do that, if I copy it, and then if I paste new, now if I try and do something to it, this first one, it doesn't affect the second one because now it's a separate piece. You can see that in the name, that it has this, the parentheses 1, showing that it's a different part, and it's not part of that same thing. Another way I can duplicate the exact same one, which is usually what I want to do in this case, is I grab it and hold Control, and I just drag it onto the name of that other component and let go, and it'll stick it inside of that component. If I do that, drag it, drop it in here, now it becomes another component within that component. So make sure that you do it and drop it on the name of the major, that subassembly that you want to go to. So now I have these here to work with, and I'll call this divider. So now I can go ahead and start doing my mates for this. I'm going to do a joint. I don't want to mess up and accidentally make the one that's supposed to go on short go here, so I'm going to turn off my short ones. So you can see turn off all of those. I'm going to stick that corner there to that corner there, and I'm going to offset it, I don't know, 1 inch. And you can see that's there too, so I'm going to do the same thing here. I hadn't made those lined up, but if I had made those lined up correctly, then I could have made sure that it was offset the right way. Actually, I wanted one to be that corner there. And you can see that whatever I picked first, that's the thing that's moving. So probably would have been better to do this first and then there, so that way that'll move to that. Now I can tell it to be off my 1 inch, so they line up there. If I want more than one of these pickets, I'm going to use this pattern tool. I'm going to tell it I'm going to pattern a component. Pick that component, pick an axis. This is just going to give me direction. I can pick out any part I want, so I can pick out that edge here, this edge. Now I can kind of go across and say, I want to fill that much space with this, and it's going to evenly space those. Or I can say that I want spacing of -2, and I can control how many of them there are. Maybe I decide, oh no, I need to move this over or something like that. I could do that. But I'm just going to go extents, make it so it's even. There we go. And there I have that. You can see it added in all those pickets as copies of that component. And now I can turn this one back on. You can see this one is back over here. So maybe on this one I only want a couple. So I'm going to do my joint. There to there. Actually, I'll do the same thing. Let's do one. Then I'll joint this to there. You can see that as if you draw it in the correct space, and you can just use your as-built joints, then it saves you a lot of work of trying to rejoint all this stuff together. So again, components there, axis there, and sure. Maybe I want it one more there, so we'll tell it to be 4. There we go. But you can see that I have this whole component here, so if I move this whole component, it moves all of them. But individually, they're still kind of separate. So I'd still want to go in and either do as-built joints to each one, or I can go in and tell it do a rigid group, and now I can pick more than one thing. Now they all stick together. And actually, if I do the rigid group, I just need to do kind of all those pickets, because that first one is already jointed. So now those are all going to move. I don't have to pick the things that are already connected with the joint. And so now I can take these things and I can reuse them as much as I want. So maybe I want to have a divider between a few of these. So I'm going to take that. If I just hold my control and drag it up to the top, it'll drop a new one down there. Or I can Control C, Control V, whatever I want, and get multiples of them. So now I can do my joints between there and there, flip it. Now I can do a joint between that end and that end, flip it. Do a joint between, remember if I just pick somewhere, I can bounce around. I don't know why it's keeping wanting to flip these, but that's all right. So I can do that. Now I can take this whole long section here. Again, just control, drag it up there. I'm just going to drag it off to the side so I know where it is. And I can joint from there to there. And now you can see that I'm creating more of my things. So when I want another short one, Control C, Control V. Stick it over there. From there to there. And now I'm making a bigger assembly out of these pieces however I want. And I'm just reusing the chunks of it. So, all right.